The only way a government who is not collecting taxes can supply it is by credit. There you begin to see what happens when you overload your credit card. By the time we reached the Great Depression, which was manufactured, the credit card was bust, and so were we. But the 14th Amendment is the tombstone that set the whole thing up. It put everything into a very concise package. It took you and put you in a pigeonhole. It slotted you as a debtor. You owe, therefore you're going to pay. From the day you are born until the day you die, somebody's going to pay for you. Just that simple. And that basically is how we came upon the death of the United States.
Wow. Drake, we have Chris on the line with us also. You know Chris. He's kind of our law advisor. Chris, there was a couple of points that you were making mention in the in our Skype room. I'm going to let you go ahead and bring those up real quick.
Yeah, before you do that, I would like to point out that when the 14th was passed, it was not lawfully ratified because a number of states, especially in the South, absolutely refused to ratify it. Georgia, I know for sure. And when they refused to ratify the 14th Amendment, the federal government sent in what we call today carpetbaggers to take over the legislation of Georgia and pass it for them. They were forced, as were some other states. So the 14th Amendment was never even lawfully ratified.
Mm-hmm. Chris, if you want to bring up your points, your mic is open.
Well, absolutely, if you don't mind. First, I want to really point out that Drake has commanded a monstrous amount of attention. I've heard him on several programs being alluded to, people clamoring for ways to contact him or to find out what he has to say next. And I just want to really take my hat off to him and how he's inspired people around America.
Thanks.
Part of the things that I've noticed in your commentary so far that I have some contributions to, Drake, are first and foremost, I guess I could go back and point out about the foreign hireling soldiers that were brought here as Hessians to serve in the services of the Crown against the American colonists, and were hired, and they were fierce fighters, of course, but because of tenacity and in many cases our soldiers eventually kind of overwhelmed aspects of them. But I guess more importantly, speaking to your current topic of the 14th Amendment, the 14th Amendment was in fact invoked by the installation of military officers against already re-accepted and reinstalled lawful governances in those southern states where they were supplanted by military officers placed in the seats of the lawfully elected, qualified representatives of the people of those southern states, thus taking over by military force.
Exactly.
And additionally, my understanding is that tacit operations of law, those things that operate by the mere presumption of being invoked by legal schemes of the 14th Amendment, specifically to the being in rebellion against your, being one of the causative reasons for being removed from voters' rolls, being in rebellion, was that by voting for the de facto corporate military-style government that was supplanted in lieu of the de jure constitutional free state nations governments, you were tacitly presumed to be in rebellion against your lawful government, therefore effectually being accused of being a criminal.
That's true.
Wow. Wow.
And
Okay. Go ahead, Chris.
You got to remember something too. The date on this is 1868, and you have to remember that they just got done with the Civil War, and the basis from the Southern point of view is the War of Northern Aggression. The ideology being that the North was going to preserve the Union no matter what. The ideology and understanding, and probably, in my opinion, the lawful consensus was that the Union had been broken by the secession of the Southern states. So you got a big old controversy, and that thing will probably be argued forever. But you have to remember that they just got done fighting a war. The South was in raggedy ruins, pretty much. Sherman marched to the sea and burned a path about a half mile wide, right through the heart of everything. And so these people are scared to death, first of all. Secondly, you got this military power that says, oh, yes, we are, and you get out of the way or they'll shoot you. Just that simple.
Part of the problem with that was that Lincoln, even though he did intend to, at the end of the Civil War, end the state of national emergency and martial law that the nation was under during the Civil War, he had died. And that martial law, that state of emergency, was never rescinded. So they took advantage of it, and they used the military to force the South to bend their will to the will of the North after the war. And it's been going on ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it just got worse. They figured out they could do it down there. So, well, why don't we do it to everybody? We get a lot more money if we squeeze everybody real hard. And that's why I refer to this as the financial tombstone of this country. Right. Everybody knows about the national debt. You know that your taxes are high, and you believe me, you pay a load of taxes you don't even know exist. And it's basically killing us. We're on the road to financial ruin for the simple fact that we have borrowed and played so many games with the money that the process has run out of gas.
Yeah, and other people's money. And there's never been a president since Abraham Lincoln who was lawfully elected, because we've been under martial law ever since, and Congress can't pass any laws during martial law. There can be no elections, no lawful elections during martial law, and no subsequent so-called president has ever wanted to relinquish the amount of power that a sitting president has during a time of national emergency and martial law. That's the only reason they get away with all these outlandishly ridiculous executive orders, because our Constitution is suspended. Yeah, go ahead.
Drake, is it not true that in the Utah case of Diet, D-Y-E-T-T v. Turner, the 14th Amendment was in fact declared to be unconstitutional, therefore unlawful, therefore nugatory?
A lot of states have tried that particular thing, Utah being one. The problem is that you are not living under a...
honorable.
No, it's worse than that. You're not living under a system that plays by rules. The rules change according to what the people who make them, which are usually justices at some level, are told to make them. This is why you have everybody and their mother-in-law say, no, don't do that, or you have a case such as the one you mentioned, or others. The Supreme Court won't hear that. Well, no, wait a minute, this is crucial. We don't care, we don't want to hear it. So what you have is a control of each and every last aspect of each and every last part of all of the government. A lot of this also trickles down from what we're talking about in terms of federal and state into the counties. You got corrupt sheriffs, you got this or that, and it is extraordinary. It's unbelievable. as to the scope of how far in the toilet everything is.
And we have my guests today, Drake, Teri, Anita, and Chris. And we have heard from Teri talking about the birth of our nation. And we have heard from Drake and Chris regarding the death of our nation. And now I'd like to bring Anita in and let her talk a bit about the resurrection of our nation through we the people, and that the actions we have taken and are taking. Anita, welcome.
Sorry, I had my mute button on. Hi. That was great. That was just great listening to that. The history that no one knows about, right? I started researching this and kind of went down the same path as you people, and I stopped at the 14th Amendment and couldn't believe, what Teri was saying, that was never constitutionally ratified. Basically, they took guns apparently to some people's heads and said, do it. So when I discovered that, I thought, well, at least it makes sense that decentralization is the solution, and for the states to regain their sovereign status is another form of relocalization. The more centralization you have, obviously, the less freedom you have. The more power people grab, the more control, etc., So I was really excited about the idea when Drake said that they were going to attempt to, or they're bringing back the status of the states. We do have a lot of states. You people, I'm sure, are following some of the 10th Amendment Center things. There's a movement there to nullify certain parts of the Constitution that was not properly ratified, although I don't think they've mentioned the 14th Amendment. But nullification is a big issue, and some of these states are, they're balking at what is going on, which is great. However, one of the problems that I've noticed locally is the money. I heard a state legislator from Oklahoma on the Alex Jones said that basically the states send their money to the feds and it trickles back, and it only trickles back into the projects that the federal government wants to have implemented, whatever they want. So the money has been trickling back into my county, and the people in my county have chosen to purchase SWAT gear. I have a Homeland Security office less than 10 miles from my home. So, the federal government is obviously overstepping all bounds, and it's wonderful that we're going to be able to reverse that and reconstruct our world based on our own colonies. Because of that, I've got involved with this group, and I was thrilled to hear you guys were interested in relocalization because I've been working on it for years. So for those who didn't tune into the call, last night we had our first national call where we talked about this project. You can go to the Freedom Reigns website, and you can click on the county page. You can scroll down, and right underneath where that little logo is, Relocalize Your County, you will see under there is a link to the Freedom Reigns County Project, which is recently, this is a wiki site that I only set up about a week and a half ago, and it's a work in progress, folks, to help people understand how their little corner of the world works, because we have a machine that's broken. Hopefully, most everybody has recognized that. In fact, every person I ask, and I've asked so many people this question, I get the same answer. Do you feel like we're drowning in corruption? Every person, the gentleman who mows lawns, I have not talked to anyone who doesn't feel that way. But they haven't a clue where it's coming from for the most part, and they don't have a clue on what to do about it. So the idea of eliminating it in your backyard, I think it's unavoidable. It's in my backyard, it's in most of our backyards because of the way the system was set up. And it was set up with the corporations gaining huge power and control over all forms of government in our country.